In September 2016, close to 50,000 mining industry professionals from around the globe gathered in Las Vegas, Nevada for Mine Expo International, the largest mining show in the world. Mine Expo was the perfect venue for SKF to launch the first ever Mining Insights speaker series. SKF developed the series to help mining industry professionals gain insights to overcoming the challenges faced every day within the industry. A diverse range of experts from across the world of mining presented real-world case studies, industry trends, technologies for improving reliability, productivity, safety, and much more. Now, our next presentation is on Industry 4.0, the challenges and opportunities for safety, maintenance operations, and training within the mining industry. Our speaker is Director of Business Development at SNC-Lavalin, which is one of the world's leading engineering and construction groups. In his position, he works to build industry awareness of cutting-edge technology, training solutions for process safety, predictive maintenance, and visualization. And that's actually what he'll be doing right now. So please put your hands together for Mr. Riaz Kabir.
Thank you.
Welcome. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. How are you all doing today? Good. So I always like to start my presentation with one quick question or two, just to make sure you guys are paying attention, okay? And so the first question is, who knows here what is Industry 4.0? Partial answer, I can give credit for partial answer. You don't count. Anybody, anything like any kind of vague reference to something around Industry 4.0? None. Okay. Now let's ask a different question then. Okay, this is a very tough crowd, I can see that. Okay, how many of you have any app on your phone today that you can use to turn on and off your lights or electricity at home from outside? What we'll do today is we're going to talk about what Industry 4.0 is in a little bit. But before we do, I'm going to talk about SNC-Lavalin, who we are, and there's a short video I'm going to show you to give you a little bit of an idea of who we are and what kind of things we do, okay? So some of you may have seen, if you went to the Caterpillar booth or some of the big machines, the Jurassic machines over there, so they have some simulators. So yeah, so that's one of the things we do at SNC-Lavalin is we build these kind of simulators. So what I'll do next is I'll show you a video so you can see. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you for coming. Okay, so SNC-Lavalin, just a quick overview of the company. We were established in 1911, headquartered in Montreal, Canada, and one of the major global EPCs around the world. 37,000 employees. You can see 60 different languages and spoken, and 80 different nationalities represented. So it's a highly diversified global organization. Last year we did about 10 billion in revenue. About 41% of our business is in oil and gas, but we also spend a lot of time and effort in mining and metallurgy. And from a geography standpoint, Canadian market is our number one market, but we're also in other places around the world. These are the four major divisions of SNC-Lavalin, and some of the good examples of these divisions, like for example, infrastructure, we're responsible for building major power plants, mining metallurgy plants. Calgary Rail Transit System, we did the construction on that. In the oil and gas side, in 2014, we acquired a company called Kent's, and to provide better footing in that field. In mining metallurgy, and rest of the way, I'm going to talk more about mining and metallurgy related experience and expertise. But the Amatovi nickel project in Madagascar was one of those projects that we like to mention because it required a lot of detailed engineering, design, construction, and training. Okay, so it's a very comprehensive experience. And then Phoenix Power Project in Peru. It was a combined cycle power plant, and we did the construction of the plant as well as providing detailed grassroots training for operators that came in with very minimal level of knowledge about the plant. Okay? So in general, when we talk about my team, the GTS team, Global Training and Simulation, we're the industrial designer of training programs. Okay, that is in a short way of explaining what we do. Okay, and then these are a list of services that we provide. We do a lot of workforce analysis. We do, if it's a plant that already has some kind of training, but it hasn't proven to be effective, we can come in and do analysis on that and figure out how to improve that. Okay, when we get into what we call training accelerators, that's where we get into things like 3D immersive simulation, augmented reality, and then talk about e-learning. A lot of those digitized version of training that creates ease of use, immersive feel to it, and of course, in today's world, if you look at the workforce, a lot of millennials coming into the workforce, and if you look at learning tools that are already sort of embedded in their DNA, if you would, a lot of use of iPads and smartphones and things like that. So this sort of training really appeals to that group. Anyways, so here is some example of mining and metallurgy related projects that we have done in the past. OCP will be my case study. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But some of these other projects, BHP Billiton, we did a training needs analysis and did a full development of the training program, so to speak, and provided competency matrix for different types of roles within that plant. Okay, Amatovi I mentioned already. Ma'aden is a major project in Saudi Arabia where they have a sulfuric acid plant that is being built, and we're providing manufacturing the construction of the plant as well as the power plant that goes with it. We're building those. We're providing O&M training, so there's a lot of training emphasis in there. Some of these other ones, I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask if you have any specific questions about any of these other ones. Okay? Okay, so the case study that I'm going to focus on next is a company called OCP. It's based in Morocco, and it's founded in 1920. It's a major leader in production and export of phosphates and phosphoric acid and fertilizer. And they had some operational challenges when they contacted us. One of those challenges was that they wanted to increase production. They had 35 plants and they wanted to increase production. they also wanted to improve their productivity and flexibility of operation in those plants, okay? And they wanted to be ready for the future. A lot of their experienced workers were retiring. And so they had to hire a bunch of new people and train them quickly so that they were ready to be able to step in those big shoes. So at the end though, look at this number, 6,000 new operators had to be trained in a matter of 2 years. That is a massive undertaking. So what were the solutions? So what we did, it was a major project. We did it in 2 steps essentially. So phase 1, we focused on redesigning the organizational structure across 35 plants. Because what we found was the structure that existed was not very conducive to providing the type of training they really needed. So we had to work with them to redesign the organization that would make it easier for those training channels to open up and providing the right kind of training to the right group. In phase 2, we developed training program, and then we developed state-of-the-art training tools like training simulators. We built 5 different simulators for different processes. Okay, these are very dynamic, very accurate, modeling of the real thing. Okay, and then we train the trainer program. So imagine 6,000 operators across 4 different plants in all across Morocco. 6,000 operators, that's a lot of people to train. So what we ended up doing is we trained 320 instructors who in turn trained those 6,000 operators. Okay, that's how we did it. And so 1,500 operators in each location. There were 4 locations. And you'll see a short video right after this, so you'll be able to see some of that. And then they did not have a learning management system so that they could capture the requirements, the curriculum of the training. Or when somebody got trained and they were tested, well, you get a certificate, but did you capture it in the system so that later on HR can see, or their supervisor can see what courses they have completed, what else they need to take so that there's continuous development from a training standpoint. So what we did there was put together a LMS system so that they could capture all that information. Okay, so over a 2-year period, it was a $20 million training program. It was one of a kind for the phosphates industry. This is truly a unique, massive undertaking. You can see some of the staggering numbers. Aside from the number of people that were trained and the number of trainers we had to train, 6,000 pages of e-learning material had to be created. Okay? And then we had to create 100 plus organizational charts, okay? And 56 different competency profiles for their HR department so they could in turn use those to decide how to hire people for different roles. Okay? So it was a bottoms-up, grassroots, immense program that we did over a 2-year period. 120,000 hours were spent in developing this program and deploying it. one interesting thing that I would like to note, this project started in 2012. In 2011, something very unsettling going on in that part of the world. That was the middle of Arab uprising, the spring, if you remember. Libya, Algeria, all those countries were experiencing serious social unrest. And Morocco was one country that did not get affected by that. And if you think about some of the underlying reasons, a lot of this happened because of economic unrest and people feeling like they didn't have enough work. This kind of massive program allowed these kids to go and be employed. And when you make money, you think you are going to be out on the streets protesting. No, you have the money, you can go buy your food, be with your family, be happy. So, very important lesson to be learned. So, next thing I want to talk about is, this is where I'm going to talk about Industry 4.0. So, in a nutshell, Industry 4.0 is nothing but the idea of increasingly connected universe that we all live in. Everyone has a smartphone today. You are starting to put in more and more apps. I was using Uber from my app. Fantastic. I like to use that. It's very fast. It gets you to places quick. That's just one example. You'll pretty soon be looking at cars that you don't need to drive. You're just sitting there doing other stuff. So that's the example of what Industry 4.0 delivers in your personal life. But there is the analogy of that in our industry, which is what we call the smart factory. The idea of smart factory is you're going to connect various parts today that are disconnected and create this smart workflow, work solution, so things happen more effortlessly, happen faster, more efficiently. So if we look at a timeline, some of the things that have already been felt is looking at things like, I'm sure everybody here in the audience have heard of cloud computing. That's already in place, right? You've got crowdsourcing, things like that are already happening. You heard the term big data, that's there. Computing power has gone up so significantly. You're getting so much data, right? But the important question is not so much as how much data you're getting, but what do you really do with it? What does it really tell you? And how do you use that information to make something happen that helps your business? So, and the other important points that have already been experienced is the rapid urbanization due to the connected world we live in, the internet and everything else that goes around with it. And then a lot of companies are allowing people to work from home, a lot of flexibility. So all of that gearing us towards that, what we call Industry 4.0 is really the fourth revolution. If you think about the Industrial Revolution going from the very beginning, this is the fourth revolution, okay? What can we expect between the next 5 years, 2015 through 2020? So some of the things that we're already starting to see, what we call Internet of Things, which is where I said earlier, using your app to turn on electricity at home while you're driving outside. Or you have an app set up on your coffee maker so that on a Saturday morning you wake up, it knows precisely when you woke up and it starts making your coffee. That's the world we're talking about. And get ready for it because it's happening, okay? So the next thing is 3D printing, something that I'm going to show you today. It's part of that is already we're using in our technology. 3D printing is enabling a lot of the simulation, the 3D immersive virtual reality stuff that you're seeing today. Your kids are experiencing through their video games. It's already there, okay? And then what's going to happen in the future, though, what I'm personally really excited about is this idea of using artificial intelligence in the learning process, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in my one of the other slides. But that one and machine learning. So whenever you're using a piece of equipment today, next time you go and do the same activity, you have to do it again, all over again. Machine learning, the idea there would be that the computer that you're using or some other piece of equipment you're using for work, it already knows the second time you go what you did the first time. So you don't have to repeat those steps again. It already gives you step 10 instead of starting again from step 1. Okay? think of how much free time that will allow you to go on the internet and look for your favorite sport team or whatever else you like to do on the internet. Okay? Now, with that, let's talk about the reason why I'm here today. Okay? SKF Industries, they invited SNC Lavalin. We worked together because we saw there's an opportunity for collaboration. SKF's expertise on the equipment side with the components, bearings, things like that. From our side, we have the immersive technology. So there were meeting of the minds where we saw that we could bring those two things together to create, for example, inspection in a 3D environment, inspection training, if you would, okay? And I'm gonna show you in a little bit what that looks like. Honeywell also is in the mix in the sense that a lot of the software that we're using in this process came from Honeywell. So that partnership is creating what we like to call disruptive technology, okay? That's what changes the world. Like Uber is an example, good example of disruptive technology, okay? You see some of the other tools, whether it's Facebook or some of the other social media, that are examples of disruptive technology. That's what we need in this industry in particular. Why? Because if you look at other industries like oil and gas, aerospace, they have already adopted a lot of the things that we're beginning to talk about in mining and metallurgy today. So there is a gap to be overcome, and that's why we're talking about this stuff now, okay? And this African proverb, it came from many years ago, where it says that if you want to go fast, you go it alone, okay? But if you want to go far, you go with others, okay? And that's what we believe, because we want to go far. We want to take you where you see the benefit of using this sort of disruptive technology, okay? So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to show you the SKF vision of what that disruptive world technology looks like, okay? So the idea is you already have cloud server out there, so that's nothing new anymore. Big data is also nothing new. But what do you do with those things? So for example, I mean, many of your cars today have an onboarding system that tells you it's time for maintenance. Sometimes you get a call from your service center saying your car is ready for maintenance. That's an example of an onboarding system. That is intelligent way of doing predictive maintenance. And so we want to use that in that industrial setting where your equipment, you know ahead of time that the next maintenance needs to happen because you are starting to see some signs of things going the wrong direction, okay? That's what we're talking about here. Now, big data gives you a lot of data, but how do you turn that into information? That is the key thing, because you could get massive amount of data, but you want to focus on the ones that are really, truly meaningful. You're looking for a pattern, okay? So that's what the information comes in through smart analysis. That's where the machine would take the data, filter it, and look for the specifics that would tell you something very important about the health of your piece of equipment, your turbo machinery that you're worried about, whether or not it's going to fail. If you think about the PF curve and see, are you seeing those telltale signs ahead of time so you can take action, okay? Add to that your mobility. You don't want to be stuck at the office doing all of this all the time. You want to be able to go to Starbucks with your smartphone and be able to check some of that on your smartphone if your company is forward-looking enough to allow you that, okay? And eventually, the companies will have no choice but to allow you that because people are trying to realize it makes life a whole lot easier for everybody, okay? Of course, you lose your chance to say, oh, sorry, I was at home, okay? But that's your problem. Anyway, and then the knowledge part of it is the most important part. This is where companies like SKF, SNC, we can customize our offering to our end client because SKF would know ahead of the company that they need to replace certain bearings and provide you that information through your connected ERP system. Think about how powerful that is. If you're the operations manager, the maintenance manager, think of how much easier your life will be if your vendor is already telling you that this is the time you need to replace these things because that's what your equipment is indicating. That's the world Codelco, for example, has already adopted, okay? You talk about a company that is already looking ahead. Codelco is a good example of that. They have adopted quite a bit of this already. Okay, next I'm going to show you the most important part of this presentation. The R&D effort that we did. We came up with this connected inspection training that uses 3D, okay? You're gonna see a motor, a pump, and somebody who's getting trained how to inspect it using the microlog inspector from SKF. When this inspection happens, one tool, obviously one thing is to teach you about the tool, how to use the tool, okay? But the other part, probably even more so important, is to make sure that this person is picking up on all the issues, the missing bolt or a leakage from the lube oil, or finding there is a corrosion issue, vibrational noise issues. How are they getting trained on that? That's the whole purpose behind something like this, okay? So here we go. So this is where you are doing the safety inspection, just making sure that your protective equipment is there, your fire extinguisher is there. Once you see that, you go back to microlog and you go check, okay? So next we're going to look for motor related issues that are maybe not okay. So look at some of the examples. So there is a missing bolt right there. The electric box is missing also. This one has a missing guard, so now we're going to populate those fields in terms of velocity and other key pieces of information through the use of sensors. Okay, and then you can see that after the training was completed, assuming if it was a test, after they had been thoroughly trained, this person scored a 90 out of 100, and the training report is right there. So you can capture that information, put it in the LMS, so then you already know that they have completed their training. If they didn't pass it, then what things they missed, and go back and retrain them on those issues. Okay? So that's the crux of what we have developed. Part of what we have also done is look at this other aspect of training, which is somebody who is brand new, coming into a plant and never seen a pump or motor before. If you want to train them in a way where they can identify the different parts of that motor. In the 3D augmented reality, we're able to explode the different parts of the motor. So you can see the different parts in different places and they're named, so they identify those pieces, and then they're able to then go to the real piece of equipment and know what to do, okay? So with that, we're going to go to the summary and conclusion. And essentially what we're saying is we're living in an increasingly connected industrial future, thanks to things like Internet of Things, big data, cloud sourcing, things like that. Again, like I said, oil and gas and aerospace have already gone ahead, farther ahead compared to mining and metallurgy. So we have some gap to close. Disruptive innovation, I mentioned this again. You're going to see more of those coming in the future, in terms of your personal life as well as in the industry that you're in. You're going to see those innovations. And what we showed you today is an example of something like that. We're using 3D virtual reality. Okay, what are the future trends? I talked about predictive maintenance via machine learning. So their machine is learning those preferences and it tells you what's happening. And then finally, anybody here heard of the Watson from IBM? Okay, so that's an example of a robot that has emotional intelligence. So the robot can talk to you, and how you respond, it can pick up on the fact that you are having a bad day. Okay, we want to incorporate that in learning because people have individual preferences when it comes to learning. People learn in different ways. Today, the way we teach people is we teach everyone the exact same way. We can customize those, especially in case where you have safety is paramount in an industry where you have to teach them the right way, and that can be done through the use of artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Thanks, Riaz. Thank you very much. I'll stand up on stage with you.
Sure.
4.0, an increasingly connected world. I mean, I found that really a fascinating presentation. And, we consider ourselves as SKF to be a traditional engineering company, but we also consider ourselves to be exactly that, the future of technology as well. So thank you for that presentation. Now, the question from our side, I guess, would be, more and more we see employees turnover leading to a loss of skills and expertise within the industry. Now, how does Industry 4.0 and collaborators like SNC and SKF support the transition for this new generation of workers?
Right. Thank you. So I touched on this topic before, and I think it's worth mentioning again. If you look at the trend in the industry, a lot of the more experienced workers are retiring or have already retired. All of that cumulative knowledge, hands-on training, which is, by the way, the best way to learn, is when you get your hands dirty and learn something. They're walking away, they're retiring, there goes all the knowledge. How do you capture that knowledge? Well, the next best thing is what we showed you here, where you are capturing it through this sort of immersive environment, aside from bringing some of those people back as consultants to help you with the training. But that has also its pluses and minuses. You want to be able to capture the best practices. And when you do that, then you talk about the millennials, who are the generation for the next several decades. That's going to be the generation. And the millennials, they're used to iPads, they're used to Xbox, Wii, and all these things. So for them, learning this way, it's so much easier. One of the important things that I've learned through my own research in this area is that you talk about employee retention. A lot of people think that, okay, you want to keep somebody longer, pay them more money. Well, that works to a certain extent, but doesn't work for long, okay? Because somebody else is going to come and offer them more money. That's not the way to create employee retention. But this is one of the very powerful ways to create employee retention when they see that you are investing in their future by training them in a way that they find interesting and meaningful. So those are some of the ways we need to keep moving with respect to that.
Thank you. Okay, please put your hands together for Riaz. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Thank you. Join the conversation. If you haven't already, be sure to follow SKF Mining Insights on LinkedIn and look for more case study presentations and other valuable content on skf.com/mining insights.